So while I've said before that I'm not an English teacher, I do work within the English industry in Korea, which means I'm involved in like writing, editing, checking, answering stuff. I have to know what I'm doing, and when I first came here, to be honest, I didn't know as much as I should have. Most speakers of any language, when they grow up, they don't know all the terminology and the specific rules about things. They know what they're supposed to say, but they don't really know why they're supposed to say it, or where like a rule starts and a rule ends or something like that. So while I was here, I referred to this book. It's called A Comprehensive Grammar of the English Language. It's a wonderful book. It's about 1,700 pages. I've actually read through about 1,500 or 1,600 of them. I didn't finish it, but I got through enough, and that's not to say that I have this book memorized. But I've gotten to the point where I know the terminology, I know what things are called. If I see a sentence or a grammar point, I can recognize it. And if I need to answer a specific question about it, I don't know exactly where it is in the book, but because I know what it's called, I know what to look up, and I know like what exact point to look for when I'm looking through this book. It saves a lot of time. If you're actually working related to English in Korea, it helps to know your stuff. It helps to get a better grasp of the language. Maybe you're only teaching kindergarten, very basic English language stuff, but it's good for your own sake, for your own English speaking ability, for your own writing ability. When Koreans are learning English, they want specific rules. They want to know what they can do and what they can't do. In many cases, there are specific rules. Sometimes there are not. Sometimes it's a fine line. Sometimes it depends on the context. There's not always one way to do something, and sometimes I disagree with some examples in this book. Sometimes I disagree with examples online. Sometimes I disagree with other people I'm working with, but I at least know why I disagree, and I do recommend getting some actual book resources for grammar. This one is really advanced. Not that I'm saying oh, you can't handle it, but it goes into so much detail. It's better to really make sure you know all the fundamentals and the terminology before you dive into something like this. When you have a grammar resource, it's much easier actually to have a book than to just look it up on Google. There are so many examples, so many wrong examples, because anything will come up on Google. Even if you search for a grammar resource, sometimes it's just questions people ask and just normal people respond to them. It's not to say they're wrong, but books are much more authoritative. I know people stress oh, when you're in a foreign country, you should spend time learning that country's language, which is worthwhile, but if you are here to work, I think it's also a priority to study your own language and figure out what's what, and become good and reliable at it. If you can balance both, that's great, but I would recommend getting good at what you're supposed to do for your job before you indulge in other activities.